Hello everyone and welcome to the best mercenary guide for Bannerlord on the market. I am Halcylion and I actually lied. This is in fact a raider tutorial disguised as a mercenary guide, but before you click off muttering to yourself that this is the last time you got clickbaited, you have to understand, a mercenary is nothing more than a bandit with a raiding license. Alright, first order of business is choosing a character build. I won't give you some perfectly fine-tuned, min-maxed build so you can be the absolute best mercenary who's ever walked the continent, because in my opinion, being a soldier of fortune is a mere stepping stone in your career. A very important and profitable phase, but a phase nonetheless, not the endgame. As you know, it didn't take long for a certain sellsword to go from up-jumped cutthroat to Sir Braun of the Blackwater, and then Lord of Highgarden and Master of Coin. How someone with no knowledge of finance earned that position is a plot hole in itself, but we're not here to discuss TV shows, so let's stay on topic. If being a mercenary is the absolute peak of your ambitions, you should definitely roll Vlandian because they're the best at negotiating a proper salary, but as someone who finds mobility to be of utmost importance, I recommend making your protagonist either Aserai or Battanian. Then again, it's your character, so pick whichever race suits your fancy. As for your skills, I don't care what you take during character creation, but by the mid-game, you should have already invested 5 focus points into roguery, another 5 into a combat skill of your choice, and then have a few skill points scattered around athletics, riding, and stewardship. And to tell you a secret that I've never shared with anyone before, if you have just 2 points into an attribute, say social, and you decide to put 1 focus point into charm, you can easily obtain its first 2 perks. And if you put 5 focus points into that skill, you can definitely get it to level 200, if not higher. But if you want to reach level 275 or 300, you will need to raise the parent attribute to at least level 8. Going all in is only necessary if you wish to speed up the development of the skills belonging to that attribute, but if you're patient, they can be maximized at just level 8, so you can keep your extra 2 points for another attribute. But maximizing social is not required, unless you really want to be the highest paid merc in all of Night City. Calradia. You see, if you're a private military contractor, any influence you gain from battles, tournaments, or donating troops and prisoners will be converted into cold hard cash. And the final perk in Charm passively gains you 5 extra influence per day, 10 if you take your skill to 300. Depending on your contract, that's about 500 gold per day as passive income, so in a way, you get paid for being an influencer, and while that's not bad, I'd rather focus on other skills that can make me even more money. Anyway, to close off this subject, you're going to need to assign at least 1 focus point to Charm, Trade, and Medicine, because doing so will give you some indispensable abilities. More influence, which translates to more money, lower trade penalty for selling your looted weapons and armor, which means more money, and the ability to instantly regenerate lost health after each battle, which eliminates the downtime in between fights and ultimately results in you gaining even more money. I like money. A 10-second Patreon integration would work here, but it's too early in the video and I haven't given enough value yet to be making such demands, so let's just move on. But what's next? Well, you got yourself a build and some basic knowledge, so that's a start. Now it's time for you to make a choice. Are you going to play by the rules and get a job as a mercenary, or are you more of an F the establishment kind of guy and prefer to blaze your own path? Because as I've said earlier, you can either be an outlaw or get yourself a raiding license. If you're one of those guys who'd rather go his own way, let me tell you what's going to happen. You can be on friendly terms with 7 out of the 8 factions, and focus your anger on just 1. Smart, unless you wander too deep in their territory and start running into patrols that outnumber and overpower your raiding party. Best to stay on the fringes and pick off their caravans or weak lords. Another option is to go to war with 7 out of the 8 kingdoms, and leave 1 as a sort of safe space, where you can retreat to when you're in trouble, and sell your loot in their towns. Not a bad idea, but you'll be hunted down like a dog whenever you venture too far outside the borders of your country of residence. Option number 3 is to be extremely stupid, like I was on 2 of my characters, and go to war with everyone. Do this and there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nowhere to sell your loot to. Not for full price anyway. Villages and caravans will purchase your stolen goods, but only offer to pay a fraction of their value. And if you wish to sell into a city for full price, you better conquer one yourself or wait for a rebellion that won't even last 5 minutes. But why do all that and risk a hefty prison sentence, when you could instead get paid to do it legally? If you're good at something, never do it for free. Before we get into that, however, there's one other issue to take care of: your fame. Nobody will offer you a contract unless they've heard of you, and the only way you can do that is by proving yourself on the battlefield. Tournaments are a good alternative and they can give you some good rewards, but what matters most is that you increase your renown, and early on, the most reliable way to do it is by hunting bandits or completing quests. That's not something you can pull off on your own, so you should recruit a few people and then get to work. Catching bandits is not very easy, however, because oftentimes they can move faster than your party, but there's ways to improve your traveling speed on the overworld map. The first 4 perks in riding and scouting can boost it a little, and if you don't wish to waste your points on the latter, you can hire a companion instead. Open your encyclopedia and search for Horse Thief, Wanderer, Tracker, and a few other types of companions. Get yourself a skilled scout and then assign him to that position, to instantly reap the benefits without putting in any work. It's like hiring an editor to toil on your videos while all you do is play games. Not something I can relate to, unfortunately. But if you can't quite obtain the skills and perks needed to speed you up, the least you can do is invest some money into a few mounts to get the footmen on horses speed bonus, or even hiring cavalry, which gives you an even bigger bonus. Don't buy too many horses though, because leading a herd will incur a massive speed penalty. The rule of thumb is this: 1 footman can ride a spare mount and lead a pack mule, while a cavalry unit can only manage 1 animal, since he's already riding one. Anyway, you recruited a couple dozen half-wits, solved your speed issues, and caught some bandits. Congratulations, now your clan is tier 2 and soon you'll receive a letter in the mail inviting you to become a mercenary for one of the major factions. The amount they offer to pay can vary, from 100 to 200 dinars, maybe even more, and it all depends on how badly they're getting pegged by their enemies. Higher paying contracts also mean more danger, but between you and me, the money they offer is just the frosting on the cake. The cake itself is the very expensive loot you'll obtain from these poor Funko-Pops you're about to put into the dirt. But Mr. Halcylion, sir, I didn't get an invite, you might say, and if that's your situation, then all you have to do is right-click the towns of various factions to open the encyclopedia and take a look at the geopolitical situation. If a kingdom is currently not at war, they have no need for hired help. If they are, then rush towards their nearest town, or any lord you see in your path. Introduce yourself to one of their faction representatives and tell them you're looking for work. If their offer is not insulting, accept the contract and ta-da! You're now a merc, and are free to reap the benefits of this lifestyle. The first of these benefits is the ability to attack the enemies of the faction you just joined without permanently souring your relations with the entire enemy faction. As a tier 2 clan, your party will only accommodate 50 to 60 people, so you probably won't be able to ambush lords and their professional soldiers. But if you're fast or smart enough, you can catch their caravans and relieve the traders of their burdensome cargo. A few versions ago, if you played your cards right, you could leave a couple of survivors after each of your raids, let them escape, accost them a second time, and convince them that generosity is a virtue. In my community, this act is known as a proper robbery, and I've driven my regular viewers insane by explaining it over and over again in every single episode of my bandit playthrough. Nowadays, robberies are no longer possible because even in the unlikely event where you manage to make a couple of caravan guards run away in sheer terror, they no longer get placed on the overworld map with the cargo you've not managed to steal. Nope. The ones who escape just count as wounded troops, and you'll take them prisoners, so whatever you manage to get the first time is all you'll get to keep. The rest, I assume, is taken by your men. That's my headcanon anyway, to maintain a sense of immersion. Otherwise, it's just 50% of their cargo and 90% of their money vanishing into thin air. You can stop the attack when there's only one enemy left, walk away and then approach him again to make him wet his pants and give you all of his cargo, but if you do this, you abandon all of the battle loot dropped by the caravan guards you just killed, and that equipment is worth more than whatever money and goods you managed to steal from the merchants. If you even manage to do it, cause some of these aspiring entrepreneurs will defy you to the very end. 1 versus 50? Bring it on, bitter foe! I hope my efforts to censor myself have not gone unnoticed by the algorithm. Mother Fondler has suppressed my content for these past 6 months, and I'm 50% sure it's because of my potty mouth. I beg you, Mr. YouTube, I'll be a nice boy from now on. Please spread my videos around. If you wish to help a brother out, you can give this video a like. Couple of grand is all I need for this tutorial to perform well, but don't do it now, okay? Wait till the end, and if my guide helps you out, then feel free to press it. Don't worry, I'll make sure that you don't forget. But as always, I digress. So you can raid caravans and steal their precious cargo, a bit of their money and whatever gear is dropped by their fallen soldiers. As for those that do not fall, you can capture them and sell them to the nearest ransom broker for a decent amount of money and a bit of roguery experience. Just as a reminder, this is your #1 most important skill, not only as a raider or mercenary or warlord, Unless you're a pacifist who simply avoids battles at all cost, I don't give a frisbee what you play as. If you're going to fight in battles, you need this skill to have 5 focus points at least, even if you don't develop your cunning. Forget about trade or smithing or anything else. Those activities may be profitable, but they are mere distractions. You didn't start playing Bannerlord so that your character stays cooped up inside a sweaty forge or transport grain for 1000 denars of profit. Nothing against doing that, but if we're being honest, Mount and Blade is all about the battles, and if the wars you wage are not profitable, you simply cannot run a kingdom. Got my point across? Do I need to keep drilling it into your heads? Jokes aside, roguery is great, but investing 5 focus points into it is only half the battle. The other half is actually leveling it up to at least 150, after which you'll have a choice between doubling your profits or being able to recruit any roaming gang of bandits, no matter how large. They do have to be scared of you though, or else they'll try to rob you. So much for honor among thieves, eh? But what if I told you, you don't need to choose because you can always talk to the arena master, and for a small fee, he'll allow you to change your choice however many times you want to. I personally keep my smuggler connections until I become a millionaire, and then respec to gain the ability to replenish my army at a moment's notice. One useful trick I've learned from watching someone else is to accept the trouble with brigands quest from whatever village has that problem, and then wait for actual gangs of sea raiders or steppe bandits to wander close to the settlement and become marked. Once they do, their flight instinct is removed, and they just stand there until you catch up and extend them an invitation into your organization. In one swift stroke, you've added God knows how many outlaws to your gang, and also removed them as a threat towards the village. I am ashamed to admit that I no longer remember where I've seen this trick pulled off, but if I find the video, I'll link it in the description. It's the least I can do. And let me tell you, being able to outright recruit bandits is crucial if you wish to further develop your skill to 225 or even 275, which come with abilities that make war the most profitable activity on the continent. The Arms Dealer perk further improves the price of your weapons by an additional 20%, and becoming Rouge Extraordinaire brings you an additional 1% loot bonus for every point above 200, which translates to a whopping 75% increase just from a single perk. And that's in addition to the 68.8% given to you by the Roguery Skill alone. As soon as I was done writing that last paragraph, I've undergone some rigorous testing, and it would appear that the 75% loot bonus only applies to trade goods in your victims' inventories. Grain, fish, hardwood, horses, that sort of scheisse. Not battle loot, which is what I was hoping we'd get. Well, this isn't as great as I was hoping. This perk is still nice to have if you raid caravans, as it allows you to snatch more of their cargo, which makes the removal of robberies almost bearable. It unfortunately does not apply to money though, but that's not a problem. You can just sell some of your loot to the caravan and then get most of it back with this final perk. That was a bit of a detour, cause earlier I was saying that you need to hire bandits to develop your roguery. What does that mean, you may be wondering? To give you an answer, the banditry skill can only be increased through several means. Ransoming prisoners at a tavern, raiding villages, plundering caravans, and leading a party of outlaws. But what does that entail? You continue asking, confused by my incoherent rambling. Okay, to dispel your confusion, allow me to take it from the very beginning. After you put together your initial posse of 20 recruits and you hunt some bandits, you will inevitably take prisoners, especially if you or your troops are outfitted with blunt weapons. If you keep these prisoners around instead of ransoming them, they will eventually offer to join your crew, although you're going to have to throw out your initial soldiers if you take these boys under your wing. After some time, your party will consist solely of bandits, but that, on its own, is not enough to grant you Roguery XP. To get that, you have to actually lead the lads in battle. So attack whoever is unlucky enough to cross your path. Other bandits, villagers or traders belonging to the enemy faction, even a lord's retinue if you're up to it. Assuming you succeed, your bandits will gain combat experience, and that is what actually helps your thievery skill develop. And even if your brigands are max level, they'll still generate roguery experience for every fight they win. Similarly, regular troops help increase your leadership skill, and later on throughout your playthrough, you should spend some time developing that one as well, because at level 150, you gain the ability to turn bandits into regular troops. This may cause some conflicts if you're still trying to increase your outlawry, because if you suddenly turn your raiders into law-abiding citizens, there's no one left to generate that bandit troop experience. Even so, I still enjoy having this ability, as it allows me to transform the most useless creatures on the planet, looters, into Imperial shield bearers. But I take great care not to turn my sea raiders or forest bandits into noble troops. While that is the best way of consistently training your renegade skill, there's a faster, albeit less reliable method: prison breaks. I already made a tutorial on this, but since then, things have changed, so this subject needs to be revisited. Prison breaks offer great XP gain even if they fail, but it's obvious that a success is significantly more rewarding, both in skill development and building relations with whoever you're rescuing. Now, every once in a while, wars will break out and lords will fight each other. At the end of those fights, one side usually loses and gets taken captive. Very rarely, those captives are thrown into a dungeon, either in a city or in a castle. While these may seem like irrelevant details meant to pointlessly extend the length of this video, they're actually not. You see, if a noble is thrown into the dungeon of a city, you can easily get to the prison and bribe a guard to let you in and extract your target. But if he's in a castle, well, you're only allowed to visit the dungeon if you belong to that faction, in which case you'll be unable to break your enemy out, or if you have extremely high relations with the lord who owns the fort. So basically, if some noble rots in a castle dungeon, he's most likely unreachable, therefore you should only bother with towns. But try as you might, you may not find a single imprisoned lord in an entire year, so what's there to be done? If only this was a mercenary guide that has the solution to that exact problem. Can't find any damsels in distress to rescue from prison? Go look for a war, join one of the belligerents, find an enemy lord that you can defeat, crush his army, take him prisoner, drag him to the nearest city and its dungeon is full to bursting. No problem, take him to the next town and oh, he escaped. No worries. Look for another lord and repeat the process, and once you have a new prisoner, take him to the next town and goddammit, why did they have to sue for peace now? Couldn't have waited 5 more minutes. Okay, calm down. We don't have to worry. It's all good, it's all good. Join another faction, get your prisoner, take him to a city, and if the dungeon is unoccupied, throw him in there. Then, leave the kingdom you just joined. You will lose the money they would have paid you, but as I've said, mercenary income is just the cherry on top, and in our current day and age, cherries are not highly valued. Everybody's desperate to pop theirs. Once you resign, you will be able to go to the dungeon and rescue the lad you imprisoned. Before you do it, you better equip the best civilian gear you can afford. An Aserai striped armor, Kuzeet Swede boots, a good sword and 3 bags of throwing knives. If you're a skilled blacksmith, you can even forge your own two-handed sword that can one-shot the heavily armored prison guards. Do make sure that the blade has this icon, which indicates that the weapon can be equipped on your civilian outfit. And when the extraction begins, you can tell your target to sit like a good dog, or snap your fingers to get him to follow, if you need his help in dealing with the guards. I suggest you let him wait and try to defeat the guards yourself. The way I do it is scrape my left elbow across the dungeon walls and attack using only right slashes. This usually works, but if I'm outnumbered, I try my best to throw daggers in their heads or even lead them to my buddy and immediately telling him to follow. 2 fighters are sometimes better than 1, but if he falls during the attempt, he'll most likely lose his life, which won't gain you too much experience. You can, however, use this mechanic to assassinate a rival or even your own king, if you wish to usurp his throne. But if you succeed, you will gain a lot of levels in Roguery and soon enough, it'll reach 150, maybe even more. After this, the world is your oyster, as every fight you win will reward you with loot that can fetch 10, 20, maybe even 30,000 dinars. And that's without the Smuggler Connections perk, which increases your payout by an additional 50% if you commit a crime in the city that's buying your plunder. To close off this subject, once you've attempted to rescue a noble from a city dungeon, you'll be unable to repeat this process in that same city for the next 7 days. If you're an industrial prison breaker, this will pose a problem, especially given the fact that some dungeons are always full, but I never point out a problem unless I have a solution, and the solution is this. You may also use the MMPB to extract lords out of the dungeon of a castle. To do this, repeat the steps I've listed earlier until you catch a lord, and then take him to an allied castle. Then you'll be like, "Hello, Mr. Prison Guards. I'm a mercenary of your faction and would like to imprison this enemy lord. Then, without leaving the dungeon, you will resign and tell the warden, yeah, I've decided to not be a mercenary anymore and I want to rescue the lad I've just imprisoned. The guard will be confused by this unusual behavior because your goals are beyond his understanding, but he's happy to take your bribe and let you proceed. Anyway, with a high enough level in the outlaw skill, you won't have to do anything else other than fighting in order to make a lot of money. Money which you can use to maintain a huge standing army and the garrisons of 20 different towns, but that comes very late in the game. And until you get there, leading a sellsword company is good enough, maybe even better in some regards, because it's all profit with zero responsibilities. And I really mean that, because you know what's another benefit of being a Misthios? If you suddenly find yourself surrounded by enemies and there is no way to escape, you can just leave the kingdom that hired you. And guess what? Nobody will care, because as a hired sword, people expect nothing more from you. If you're a noble and you just leave like that, the other lords of the realm will despise you for it. Even if you ask your king to release you from your oath and relinquish all the fiefs you held in his name. You may not be able to hold lands or raise armies as a private military contractor, but honestly, this is one of my favorite roles to play in the world of Calradia. And if you're really craving that mercenary paycheck, you can simply attack an enemy village, put their militia to the sword, nab their gear, and immediately move on to the next village, where you'll do the exact same thing. No need to bother yourself with raiding it unless some lord offers you 15 grand to get it done. And if you raid a village simply to steal its produce, but don't want to completely burn it to the ground and damage your relations with the residents, you can stop yourself at the very last second. This perk in stewardship will make you even more efficient at raiding. Also, in regards to merc payments, if some lord happens by and your party is large enough to take him on, you'll get an enormous amount of influence, which increases your income to unbelievable levels. The loot is still better, but hey, getting paid to fight an enemy that's not even yours? That's priceless. But yeah, that was it. The best mercenary guide for Bannerlord. If you think this video deserves that title, click the like button. If not, give it a dislike. YouTube may have hidden those from the public, claiming it's to not hurt the feelings of poor little creators such as myself. But I still get to see them, and if dislikes outnumber the likes, I promise to change the title and publicly apologize in the pinned comment. I think it turned out pretty well though, if a bit long. And if you think the same, you can help subsidize the PMCs overseeing my content mining operations in Bolivia at the page in the description. And now, we really are done. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you've learned something today, and we'll see each other in my upcoming 1 hour long review for this game. Goodbye for now.